Hi, Marshall Curry.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Great. Good to be talking with you.
So first, right off the bat, since we're recording this on Wednesday, the 1st of May, how many more screenings of your short, The Neighbor's Window, do you have left in the festival?
There are two more screenings scheduled. So we've had two, and there are two to go.
Great. It's so great that Tribeca does so many, you know?
I know.
So when are those two other screenings?
Friday and Saturday. Yep, Friday at 3 o'clock and Saturday at 6:30.
Oh, good. So we still have some time to promote in the next day or two before the screenings. Great.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, I was at your premiere.
I know. It was great to have you there. It was fun.
It's great to remain connected and to see your growth over the years from a fledgling, mediocre documentary filmmaker, trying to give it a shot to, and, not succeeding, to becoming a realized narrative filmmaker. It's exciting. No, obviously, I'm wrong because in one of your earliest documentaries, you pulled this unknown politician out of nowhere, and now he's a presidential candidate. So, I mean, right? You essentially discovered Cory Booker.
Well, there were people who were discovering him at the same time, but I think that movie exposed him to a lot of folks who didn't know who the mayor of Newark was at the time. But
think about it. How many years ago did you make that documentary?
Well, I shot it. It was the 2002 election, so I shot it whatever that is, 17 years ago, or 16, 17 years ago, and then I took a couple of years to actually edit it. So it came out. I believe it came out in 2005.
2005. Did you have even an inkling that this guy would rise to the level which he has, and to the degree that now he's actually running for president?
I would say I had an inkling. Yeah, I mean, the truth is that even at that time, people would say, Cory Booker's going to be the first black president of America. So it was pre-Obama, of course, but so they were wrong about that. But I'm sure you meet a lot of charismatic people, and you think, wow, this guy's going to go somewhere, and that was the case with him. But still, there's the chances of it actually happening, the chances of him actually becoming a senator from New Jersey were pretty small. So we'll see.
And then shortly after this period of time, when you had just made your next film, If a Tree Falls, that's right around the time you and I met. In fact, you are one of the first guests on my podcast. If I recall, I was needing a guest for a particular episode, and you kind of came to my rescue, and it was really just a very, very generous thing for you to have done at the time.
Yeah, no, I totally remember.
Then came Point and Shoot sometime later,
right,
where you came back on the podcast, but also I think we did a Q&A at Tribeca. So it's really, I don't know, I really value that, have the opportunity to keep these relationships going through the years, and to get to know somebody's body of work, and to get to know the filmmaker and the man. It's been great. At what point did you realize or just sort of decide you wanted to make this shift and become a narrative filmmaker? It must feel on some level like you're almost starting over.
Somewhere in between. It's not quite starting over, but It is. There's a lot of difference. So, I've always liked fiction movies, but I was not one of those people who got into docs thinking, "Oh, this is a good stepping stone." I mean, I love docs, and to me, docs were an end in themselves. But maybe a couple years ago, I started getting an itch to try to make something fiction, and I think I just wanted to do something creatively different that was, allowed me to write a script and tell the actors what to say and where to stand, and gave me a lot more control over every frame. So it was honestly just a desire to try something creatively new.
Aren't you using an entirely different set of muscles, though?
It is, but a lot of it is similar. I mean, the language of a movie, the way that shots cut together, and you have wide shots and close-ups and reversals and tracking shots and all that stuff is basically the same. So it is, it's maybe like Spanish and Italian, where they have the same tenses and they have some of the words sound similar, but there's a difference, of course. So working with actors was different, but a little bit like working with real people who you're trying to get comfortable as you film them. So I was surprised by how similar it was, and also struck by how exhaustingly different it was.
Did you seek advice from narrative filmmakers at all?
Definitely did, yes. Yeah, so I mean, I read some stuff and I watched videos online, and then I did ask a lot of friends who had done it for advice and got some great tips. One friend gave me a great piece of advice that I don't think is super common, which was that after you shoot your main take of a scene, to do a take where everybody walks their blocking but doesn't say anything, and people walk and they look at each other and think their line, but nobody says their line. It's so good because there are times where you're in the edit and you realize that a line that seemed so important when you were writing the script actually doesn't need to be said. But you have trouble getting somebody from one side of the room to the other because maybe they're saying a line as they walk that path. So now you have a take that you can draw from where the head movements are the same, their expressions are communicating the lines, and they are moving to all the different places, and so you can use that to connect lines if you're removing something that's being said. And I definitely pulled from it.
Wow, interesting, right?
Yeah, so say there's a scene where somebody's saying a line as they walk from this side of the room to the other, and you realize that you don't need that line anymore, but you need to get them from that side of the room to the other. Well, now you have a take of that person walking from this side of the room to the other. And just, it's amazing how much can be communicated in a look, where as a acting exercise to have your actors walk their blocking and look at each other and think their line, a lot of times just a eyebrow raise or a glower communicates as much as the line that you wrote. And so I pulled numerous shots from the silent version of all of the scenes that we shot.
Did you share this with your actors? Did they understand that this was a technique?
Yeah, I told them that it was a technique, and they thought it was fun. So, they're both theater actors. Maria, or I guess all three of the main actors are theater people. Maria and Juliana were also have done movies. I guess Greg has too. So none of them had ever done that before, but they're all real craftspeople and enjoyed the kind of creative exercise of walking through. One thing that was interesting was trying to figure out whether to do that at the beginning or the end. So if you're doing 5 takes, do you want to start with that take, or do you want to let them work their way through the scene, having said the line lots of times, and then finish with the silent take?
As you were talking, something occurred to me, an interesting observation.
What's that?
You have, what are your characters' names again?
Allie and Jacob. So Maria plays Allie. Yep, Allie and Jacob, and then just the neighbor. You don't know the name of the neighbor across the street.
You have this couple who are living, across from another couple, right across the street, and they could see into the windows, and they're watching that other couple silently, and they're filling in, and they're creating a story in their own minds to fill in the blank, so to speak, regarding their neighbors.
That's right.
And you're sort of setting up your audience. I mean, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but and I don't think I am by saying that the early scenes are this voyeuristic thing, as I mentioned, and it's funny, and they're looking across at their neighbors, feeling jealous because of their lust and their passion, and their lives have fallen into the mundane day-to-day routine of creating a family and of raising children and figuring out who does what and kind of gauging how much work you're doing against your partners and all that, right? It's not a rut, but they are in a routine, you know? It's something that we can all relate to, where we look at other people's lives and we put our own story on them. You know, I think that's something that's probably pretty common. Isn't that what you're essentially exploring?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was interested. Yeah. I mean, I was interested in the way that people in cities in particular are thrust into each other's worlds, whether we're on the subway or whether we're in buildings that face each other, or, you know, our kids at the park or whatever it is. And we are pushed together in these kind of intimate ways, but our knowledge about each other is very incomplete. And we take that incomplete information and create stories about each other, and it affects how we feel about ourselves and our own lives as well. The way we feel in the stories reflects what we want or fear in our own lives, and I think it's a little bit like, you know, for people who don't live in a city, it's a little bit like social media, right? Where you see these intimate views into people's lives, where they are at dinner or what they're doing or what their kids are, you know, doing, and yet we're only getting a tiny incomplete view that affects how we see ourselves and how we see each other.
It reminds me of a colleague who constantly posting these fabulous, you know, photos and posts on Instagram and Facebook about how, you know, amazing their life is. And then, of course, I find out that there's so much more going on that's very, very difficult for them, and they're really struggling. So it's true. You can see this in different ways. You know, I'm reminded, actually, as we're talking, I had my own version of the neighbor's window. I was living on 15th Street in Manhattan, and on the third floor facing an office building. And I was, I guess, not working one summer, and I was home more, and I remember looking across and seeing whatever this little department in this, you know, room across the way in this office building, and there was a very attractive young woman, and I would notice her, and one day she caught me, and she looked at me, and, you know, for the next bunch of days or weeks, I can't really remember how long, but we were obviously staring over at each other and noticing each other throughout the day, and you know, my mind definitely started to build this into something, you know. And then there was this day finally where her colleagues noticed and teased her. I could see the whole thing.
Is that right?
And she was mortified. She was so embarrassed. I could see it. Oh. And that was it. That was like the end of the whole affair. I never saw her again. I don't remember if I ever saw her again, you know. It's just but it was quite an experience while it lasted.
That's interesting.
It was a long time.
I feel like so many people who I've told about the movie or who have seen it have said that they have their version of that story.
But I had forgotten all about that until I saw your movie. I do think it's going to connect with people. This was your festival premiere at Tribeca?
That's right. Yep. Nobody'd seen it until you were in the room.
Wonderful. And do you have other festivals already lined up and you're ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to get to show your film on a big screen. So we'll do a number of festivals. I think probably with most shorts, most people see them on the internet, though, right? I mean, we'll get it up on Vimeo and YouTube and places like that.
I don't know. Is that the way people see it? Where do you generally see shorts? Where do people post them nowadays?
Vimeo, I guess, and YouTube, and I don't know. I don't know a ton about the short market, but yeah, I mean, for me, I hope a lot of people see it, and but I also really was making it to learn how to make a film and see whether I even liked it. But I did. I liked it a lot, actually. I liked working with the actors. I liked being able to create a story rather than just shape a story that has happened in real life. And so it was fun.
So it's likely that in the future you'll be making a narrative feature.
Well, I hope so. They're so slow compared to docs in most of the time. Just in terms of you get a story and then you got to write a script and then you try to cast it and you're raising your money and there's just years and years. Somebody drops out and then the money disappears and then I just hear these stories from my friends who've been doing it for years that you can spend 3 years before you shoot one frame. And with a doc, if I have an idea, I could go tomorrow and shoot something that will be in the final movie. And that's
true, but at the same time, of course, you could start on a documentary and then it could end up taking 10 years to tell the story that, needs that amount of time to unravel.
That's true.
I mean, you could follow Corey again and it could be, take up the next 10 years of your life. He invites you to follow him through his run and his presidency and, who knows? So anyway, be serious. It sounds like your next film is probably going to be a documentary. Yeah, I mean, today I was working on a script all day. The day before, I was working on documentary stuff. So I'll be pushing both along, it's really fun with documentaries to be able to collaborate with reality and have people write their own lines and we shape them in the edit room and we take 45-minute conversations and boil them down to 90 seconds but we take hundreds of hours of footage and try to make it feel like a narrative movie it's one of the things that I discovered was that with a documentary you do your first cut and then you spend a ton of work trying to get it to feel like a fiction film. And with fiction film, you do your first cut and then you spend a lot of energy trying to make it feel like a documentary. Because you want your documentaries, you want to have them have tight narrative arcs and dramatic twists and those sorts of things. And with my fiction stuff, I want it to be surprising and organic and fiction stuff really wants to be a cliche, and documentaries really want to be chaos, and so you're fighting chaos. That's interesting. Yeah, it sounds as though you're fighting the gravitational pull in both genres.
That's right, and sort of trying to push one to be more like the other, and the other to be more like the first. So
what a great observation, though, to have made, Marshall. Really, that's great. And, there aren't that many of you guys that are working both sides of the fence, so to speak.
Right. It does seem like there are more in the last couple of years, right?
I guess.
Liz Garbus is doing one. Matt Heineman did it. And Joe Berlinger. And I feel like...
like Barbara Koppel, I think, also dipped her toes into it. And
Steve James, I know, did one years ago, but didn't love it. I think he's circling another one, though, right now.
Even Michael Moore.
Right.
Did a narrative film.
I think, though,
some years back,
that maybe in the last few years, as documentaries have become more narrative and followed the conventions of fiction, that it has made it a more plausible thing for a documentary director to be able to cross over.
Well, congratulations. Clearly this was a good new direction for you to go in, and I know I enjoyed the film tremendously. I was very entertaining, and I'm really glad I saw it, and I know the audience was as well.
Thanks.
Again, the film is called The Neighbor's Window, and it's directed by Marshall Curry, who we've been talking to these 20 minutes or so.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Marshall. Take care. Good to talk to you.